Welcome to everyone who's just joined for the third day of the learning session. We're so glad that you're here. We've got a chat question. What is the last book you read and what do you like about it? And please turn on your video. We want to see your face and mute your audio.
Hey, Anna, before we get started, I just wanted to check that Donald was able to get on and we could hear him okay. Donald, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you. Yep. Just wanted to check in. Donald, I just mentioned to Kavita and Regina earlier that we're going to do our panel a little sooner in the program. So just wanted to give you that heads up. We'll do it right after this first piece.
We ready to start? Or do you want to wait a couple more? Yeah, okay. Well, welcome everyone to the third day of the learning session. As I said, there's a chat box question. What's the last book you read and what do you like about it? Please turn on your video today and mute your audio. So the plenary today is really going to be focusing on moving towards action. What is the next step? We've all done a lot of learning together. We've done a lot of listening and empathizing with each other over the last few days. What do we do now? How do we move our systems forward? So that is what we're going to be covering over the next 90 minutes. We'll also have some celebration and some discussion about how to take action. All right, so Tamara, I'll hand it off to you.
Hi, this is Tamara. You can go to the next slide, please. And the next one. Thank you. So right now we're going to be celebrating some community progress. We have quite a few communities that have either achieved a quality by name list or have seen some shifts. And so if everybody could get their cards ready and turn their video on, we're going to get ready to congratulate some of these hardworking communities. And then I'm going to hand it over to Garen, I believe.
Yeah, here I am. Cool. So yeah, I think so we're going to try something new because we are all virtual right now. So I want to kind of recreate this energy of us all being in a big ballroom and being able to kind of applaud and offer each other congratulations and say things like citizens rejoice. And yell and scream and be happy about each other's progress. So here's what we're gonna do. First, I implore everyone who is able to please turn on your video. We would love to see your faces. And the more people are on video, the more this is gonna be a nice moment. So yeah, please, 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 if you're able, turn on your video. Grab your reaction cards. So specifically the one that says way to go, it looks like this. If you do not have reaction cards, Anna Bialik is modeling what I would like you to do if you don't have reaction cards. Just take a sticky or take a piece of paper and write some word of encouragement on it. It could be WTG, it could be way to go, it could be citizens rejoice. It could just say something exciting that you want other people to see. So then in a minute, we're gonna stop sharing our slides, but we're not gonna do that yet. Nate, if you would please go to the next slide. So once we stop sharing the slides, I want everybody to go to gallery view. That will be, you can't see it now, it's not an option now, but it will be once we stop sharing the slides. So in the top right corner of this black section of the screen, the dark gray section, there is a little button called gallery view. Another way that it's often referred to as Brady Bunch view. It'll kind of put everybody into Brady Bunch squares all next to each other. Okay, next slide, please, Nate. Okay, So then when we give the word, you'll put your way to go or congratulations sign up to the screen, and then we'll be able to kind of like scroll through and see everybody offering each other congratulations. It's going to be really fun. All right, next slide, Nate. Okay, so first up, quality by name list. We have one new quality by name list since we were last all celebrating together in July. And that community is, that's my drum roll. Nate, next slide. Washington County, Oregon. Woo! Yeah. Way to go. All right. So, Nate, next slide, please. Okay, a reminder. Wait, hold up. We missed a slide. Okay, a reminder. These are the steps. We're going to stop sharing the slides, go to gallery view, put your sign up, and let's all be excited for Washington County, Oregon. Okay, are you ready? Okay. Next slide. Stop sharing. Gallery view. Woohoo! Yay! Way to go, Washington County.
Woohoo!
Did it. Cool. This is great. Thanks for doing this, everyone. All right. So Nate, we can go back to the slides. Thanks, Nate. Sorry for all the complicated choreography.
Sorry, Garen. One sec. Let me get
It's
back
okay.
to
Take your time. Yeah, we're good.
I suddenly lost my correct screen. One sec. That's not it. Oh boy. Well,
Nate, I
let's
can
see.
share my screen if we need.
Yeah, why don't we?
Yep,
Sorry about
I'll do
that.
that.
I'll find
It's cool.
I'll
Yep.
find the stuff on my end.
Now I need a second.
I must have.
All right.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
There you go.
All right. Next up, we have shifts. Just as a reminder to people, a shift means that you've kind of clocked 6 points below your improvement median on your month-to-month run chart for one of the subpopulations. So in July, so 2020 has been kind of like a shift-a-palooza. Back in July, we celebrated all of these shifts. This is a bunch of shifts. And then now we have even more to celebrate. We've got all these communities. I also just want to acknowledge we're in a weird time when like weird things are happening with people's data. And we might have some questions about the data, but also at the same time, I want to just acknowledge that all of these communities are doing great work and kind of logging 6 points below the median. And so yeah, look at this. And all of these communities, we had to make the font smaller just to fit them all on the page. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do it again, but with one very slight tweak. If you're from one of these communities, I want you to grab your I Make Shifts Happen card and put that up to the screen. And if you don't have that, you can just write one. That's cool too. And then everybody else, kind of same as before, put up your way to go or thumbs up or words of excitement card. All right. Ready, set, go. Wait, now I have to unshare my screen. All right. Here we go. Way to go, guys. I see some shift happening, people. Oh yeah, Callie, I see it. Cool, congrats guys. Look at all these people making shifts happen. Awesome. All right. I will reshare my screen. Oops, it's the wrong screen. Why is this coming up? Sorry guys, I'm having the same problem as Nate. Can you guys see my screen?
I can see it.
Yes, we see
It's funny
people.
because I can't see it. Wait. If you want to go back a few. Oh no, this is the right one. So yeah, we will be sending our requisite trinkets your way. Look for an email from someone on our team in the next couple of days. Washington County folks, you guys get a scroll. Our Shifty communities, you guys get a t-shirt. So we'll look for an email from someone on our team sometime soon. So one more group of folks to celebrate. We have 2 new communities who have achieved functional zero for a subpopulation. And those communities are Central Virginia and Texas Balance of State, Abilene. Woohoo! We just saw Abilene's pictures for a long time, very awkwardly, and you're about to see them again. Cool. So I'd love to just say a couple quick words with each of these teams. We'd love to just sort of hear some just how they got there. What are some things that they kind of attribute their success to? So if you could go to the next slide, let's start with Central Virginia, who just achieved functional zero for veterans. And I believe the Sarahs, Sarah Quarantado and Fuentes, will be just answering some questions for us. So if you guys are here and would take yourselves off mute, please.
Hi.
Hey guys.
Hi, Garen.
Hey. So I wonder if you guys could tell us just what's a crucial change that somebody made on your team, and maybe extra points if it's kind of an unsung hero, someone who like maybe doesn't get recognition.
Yeah, I can take this one. I think probably because I'm gonna shout out to the other Sarah. I think she often is such a cheerleader for us and doesn't necessarily get a lot of the praise from that. So I think one particular thing that she has led, she had the idea last year. We were doing our case conferencing of all of our 4 priority cell populations: family, youth, veteran, and chronic, all in one meeting. And so last year, she had the idea to pull our veteran by name list kind of into a separate meeting so that we could really focus in, spend a lot of time on coming up with detailed housing plans and action items with that. And not only was it her idea to do it, but she volunteered to lead it. So every week she's been facilitating those meetings. And I think she does such a great job in inspiring all of our partners. And it's really been cool to see the camaraderie that's been built in those meetings. And I think people have been just really enjoy working together. And I think we get more done because of that. And so I think Sarah is super thorough in listing out all the action items that we discussed in the meeting, even more so now with all things COVID and going to phone conference calls instead of in-person meetings. She's very thorough, very efficient, which I think has earned her a lot of respect with our veteran council folks that participate in the huddles. I think everyone appreciates that. We get down to business. She's very thorough with the notes that go out afterwards. So there's very clear understanding of who's responsible for what. But I think she's made a space for people to present on any kind of areas where they want other insight or other help on. So I think that has really, really been a crucial changed for the way that we case conference veterans.
That's really great. Thanks, Sarah. I think, yeah, as someone who's kind of witnessed your case conferencing, I like co-sign that. Sarah is like just such a critical ingredient in the way you guys sort of are successful in case conferencing, for sure. All right, so other Sarah.
Yes.
What's something that you think the team's good at that you think other teams should ask you more about?
So I think we do a really good job with inflow. And so that's been a major change for our community and really in every population, but especially with veterans. I think there was really an idea with people outside of the system that the best way to serve maybe a vulnerable veteran was for him to go to a homeless shelter or her to get increased services and increased help. And so we've done a lot to educate the community, especially our Veterans Council, that there are resources and there's help available, even if they never become homeless. You know, we have homeless prevention and we have wonderful veteran workforce partners and all these great services. And so we've done a really good job, I think, of saying, you know, hold on, like, don't tell someone who's vulnerable to become homeless in order to get help. Like, let's help them on the front end, which has really decreased the number of veterans that we see coming into the homeless response system, which then, of course, means that we have more resources to help those who do experience homelessness. So I think that's been a really sort of big victory for our team is that communication.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for being with us and congratulations. This was
Thanks,
hard fought.
Thank you,
It was fun to
guys.
work with you guys on it. All right, next up, we have Texas, Balance of State, Abilene, and I believe we're going to be hearing from Catherine and Alexandra.
Hey guys, I'm Catherine.
Hey, Catherine.
How's it going?
Great.
Good.
So yeah, so who wants to answer which one?
So I had to pick two unsung heroes. It was too hard to just pick one. I mean, I could have picked everybody, but I picked two.
Two is great.
For the first one, actually is somebody that made it to where we could even start towards achieving this goal by getting a quality by name list. And so in order to do that, we went through our housing priority list to start of like over 400 people. And so we had to go through and update all of that and then actually create our chronic quality by name list on top of that. And surprisingly is our executive assistant, Faye, who, as y'all can imagine, that's totally not a part of the job description at all. But she took that on and really helped us to get to a place where it felt like, okay, this is a goal that actually might be achievable, you know, but seeing the overwhelming numbers at first, like we didn't think that that was something that was even possible. And so we just want to say thank you to Faith. Yay! And then the other unsung hero is Mike. He's right here. He doesn't know that I was going to say anything about him. So we actually met Mike. He was doing homeless outreach before we even encountered him. And he was doing that through harm reduction, through an organization that he created in Abilene. And so we met him through that, and his lived experience and his ability to connect with our neighbors in just the most unideal situations. You have to see it firsthand. It's really, really amazing. On top of that, he's now our PSH case manager. So he works with them from the beginning of when we first identify them and through the housing process, and on top of the case management support afterwards. And he's extremely humble and probably really uncomfortable right now, but we couldn't have done it without him. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Faith and Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work. How about this next question? What's something that your team is good at that you think other teams should ask you about?
So for us, this was a really hard question to answer because our team is just so well put together. I think we've been extremely blessed to have people of every walk of life, of every aspect, who are in our office, but I think that that's what makes it so beautiful. And so something that we talked about is our ability to meet people truly where they're at. We don't have any of these prerequisites or preconditions in order for people to get their most basic of needs met. But on top of that, I think our team is really able to be very flexible and adaptable to any situation. So, I mean, we've thrown a lot at them this year. I mean, we've implemented outreach efforts, we've implemented diversion, and those are hard changes to make. It's hard shifts in our mindset, it's hard shifts in our services. And so our team's ability to be flexible and adapt to those changes for the good of the service that we're provided is huge. But I think it's also a testament to the type of team we have, because our team isn't here to follow mine and Catherine's direction. They have a passion and a focus towards this mission for our community, not for our organization, not for their own personal reasons, but for our community as a whole. And I think that that's what it takes. It takes a community willing to come together for people. And our team does that very, very well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Congratulations. And it should be noted, this is the second proof point for Abilene. They're now one of our 00 communities, which is awesome. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks for all your hard work. You guys have plaques coming your way. And yeah, we'll get in touch again, like I said, next week, just to figure out how to get those to you and where to send them. So thanks so much, guys. And just one final note, I just wanted to note that we've been talking a lot. So this whole learning session has been about racial equity and the way our work needs to change in order to address equity and in order to make our systems more equitable. So I think that I just want to acknowledge that that's going to mean some changes in the ways we celebrate communities. We're still kind of figuring out how to add an equity lens to what we celebrate and how we celebrate it. And I think that, so yeah, just like, I just want to acknowledge that that's a change that's coming. Like we'll be celebrating communities differently in the future. I think that's it.
All right. Ross, do you mind continuing to be our slide turner? Is that cool?
Happy to.
Good. Okay. So, continuing on this theme of seeing results and seeing results for people, we wanted to sort of end this learning session and thinking about this question and staying centered on this question with all of the things that we've talked about and all of the transformation that we know needs to happen to move towards racial equity. How do we stay focused on getting better results for Black and Indigenous people, the people that we know are overrepresented in homelessness? And to help unpack this question and talk through this, we have our expert faculty that have been with us, some of our expert faculty that have been with us, and we're so glad that you can join us here for this discussion. And I'll let you each just take a quick turn. I know you've been around in the different sessions, but in case people haven't met you in one of those sessions, just wanted to let you each briefly introduce yourself, starting with Regina.
Sure. It is absolutely wonderful to have been with you this week and for much, much longer. I'm Regina Cannon, and I get the privilege of serving as the Chief Equity and Impact Officer at C4 Innovations. And I can be considered, I think, or at least I like to call myself, a justice warrior. So I'll leave it there.
All right, and Kavita?
Hi, folks. My name is Kavita Singh Gilchrist. It's really great to be with you all here today. I'm a co-founder of Racial Equity Partners. I'm a former Community Solutions member. I have worked there for 2 years in the past, and with all this amazing way you celebrate your communities, I really miss it. It's just so lovely to see. It's so important to keep those celebrations going because this work is hard. So I love to see how they pull that together so well. Most of my work that I bring to the table in equity and racial equity is with school systems and school districts that are grappling with the same issues around racial disparities in how we treat our children in our schools from a very young age, starting in preschool. So there's a lot to learn, I think, from across sectors. So I'm happy to bring that to the table. I'll kick it over to Donald.
Yeah, Donald.
Donald Whitehead. I am one of the other one of three co-founders of Racial Equity Partners. I have a 25 plus year history of working in the homeless sector, have been working on racial equity for longer. I also did some work with Greenpeace on environmental racism. And my other title is I am the current executive director of the National Coalition for the Homeless.
All right, great. So great to have you all with us here this week and here today. You know, there's so many topics that we've touched on over the last 2 or 3 days, and we know that this is really a transformational process, not a transactional process. And that transformational journey needs to operate at all these levels, the same levels that racism operates, at the individual level, at the level of our programs and organizations, at the level of our local systems, at the level of state and county systems, and on up to national organizations and national systems. And that transformation needs to be happening simultaneously in all these spaces. And so much of what needs to change is us, right? We need to change. We need to change how we're thinking and how we're acting. And as we take that seriously about our own transformation, how do we not lose sight? How do we stay centered on the lives and well-being of the people that we ultimately want to impact? And how do we mitigate against this being just a self-improvement project and one that is a self-improvement project, but one that is focused and centered on the people that we want to serve?
So I guess I could start, Nate.
Sure.
So I think one of the most important ways to be continuously reminded of the work that is before us is I heard in one of the celebrations about the true inclusion of a person experiencing homelessness. So if one of the values in bringing people with lived experience to the table is that they will constantly remind you of the work that still needs to be done. So I think embedding people with lived experience and also creating an ongoing committee, coalition, whatever title you want to give to it, of people who are committed to doing ongoing assessment of your process internally. So the ship needs to be steered, if you will. So having a entity that you create in your community that steers the process and constantly on a regular basis taking a look at what progress means. And then I think the other thing is making sure, and I'm sure Regina will touch on this also, that you know what good looks like at the end of the day. So in order to reach a goal, you have to identify that goal. So setting some real goals in your community and working towards being able to achieve those. Those are the things that I think are most important in keeping the work centered.
I'll jump in here.
I'm happy to, yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Regina. Just following up on what Donald is talking about with inclusion, you know, I think a lot of our communities, we think about that and we'll do that and we'll do focus groups and hear from folks in the community. But I think we can all do a better job of engaging folks with lived experience in all aspects of our work. So we need to do, you know, include and engage when it comes to the more obvious ways. But we've got to hire, we've got to appoint. We really have to include them at the table in more structural ways. And I think the difference between, you know, a focus group and a hire is a big one. And the more that we can think about implementing structurally, that inclusion would really take flight. And I love to hear, I think it was Faith from the last community, that it sounds like they've done a lot of that. They have very mixed, I know she referenced having a fairly mixed staff of people with a lot of different experiences at the table, which has really helped them contribute to the shifts that they've been able to make recently. I loved hearing that. And then a lot of humility, cultural humility. I mean, we are all coming off, you know, I mean, there aren't that many young folks on the screen right now, but if you've grown up in our education system, you haven't learned just really basic facts about structural racism and policies that have been put in place up through the 70s and 80s into our 90s that have just kept people out of systems. So a lot of humility and just kind of relearning and learning new stuff that we just didn't know before.
Yeah. You know, as I'm listening to my two colleagues here, I'm thinking about maybe even a series of questions that we could leave you with around this. You know, I can't take off my professor hat. And so I'm thinking about, you know, if we think about our beliefs, so the question would be, do we actually believe that the people that we're serving have the same agency over their lives as we do? We actually believe that. When we think about our approach, are we coming into this as experts, or are we coming into this as partners, as supporters, as advocates on their journey? And do we enter into that space with that culture, humility, having done the work of exploring our own beliefs and assumptions and perhaps even those stereotypes that we have about those that are experiencing homelessness, those that are of a different race or ethnicity or gender identity than we are? And then when we think about our work, are we truly co-designing and in an inclusive environment, or are we just checking the box for feedback when we have time to do that? And then our conversations, do we talk about their strengths first, or do we go to their deficits? Do we ask about their dreams and aspirations? Just because you're experiencing homelessness does not mean that you have given up your dreams, all those things that you wanted to be when you were 5 years old. You never listed that I want to experience homelessness. You had all of those wonderful things in your mind. Do we ask about those? And do we talk about folks' mental health, their physical health? Do we talk about what's going on in the country and the society, in our local community that may be affecting them inadvertently? Are we seeing them fully as whole people? So I would just leave you with those questions.
Great. Well, thank you. That was great. I hope somebody jotted those down as you were talking, just thinking about that. This would be good to look back on. All right, next slide there. And the next question. So we know that there's a whole spectrum in terms of where we all are at on this journey of understanding, of education, of acting towards racial equity. And that happens, that spectrum may exist within a community for individuals and across communities. And so with that in mind, knowing we're all at different points in this journey, what are some, maybe there's two questions here. What are some universal themes that regardless of where you are on this journey, we want to hold together, you know, that are things we just want to continuously remind ourselves about? And maybe what are some words of wisdom that you would offer for those that would see themselves at maybe the earlier beginning stages of this process? And Regina, I wonder if you want to take this one first.
Sure. I'll try to do both. Universal themes. I think first, maybe to hold on to our shared understanding of racial equity, that it is both an outcome and a process. So let's keep holding that together. I think that we want to hold on to the value and importance of both quantitative and qualitative data, that we actually believe the experiences of those most impacted, that we open space for those stories to be told, that they're just as important as that quantitative data that we're pulling out of our HMIS. Let's hold on to the fact that we don't just do equity, but in fact, we live out racial equity, that in every single interaction, in every relationship, in every program requirement, in every rule, in every decision that we make, and on and on and on, that we live it, that we hold on to that. I think we have to hold on to the fact that racism and discrimination will adapt, that even when we think that we've nailed it in one place, it's going to pop up in a different name, even sometimes in our homelessness response systems. So we must always be vigilant and intentional and focused on exposing and dismantling it. I think that we have to hold on to this notion that conflict and creative tension, it's necessary for us to grow and learn together. I think that we have to hold on to this notion that power is most powerful when it is shared. It is most powerful when it is shared. And perhaps maybe a the final theme is that that neutrality can be a mask for oppression. So get in the arena, get in the fight for justice. Don't stand in the middle, don't stand on the sidelines. And what I would say for those that are sort of in those beginning stages, folks, don't be afraid of saying the wrong thing. We all do. I get up every morning and just start saying just nonsense. So don't be afraid of saying the wrong things. If you say something harmful, apologize. This is the place for some grace. Have the courage to do a little self-exploration. What assumptions have you made about folks that don't look like you, that perhaps you were just socialized to think of? Read, listen, watch, study, process. And you know what? Here's the deal. Guilt about what you haven't done is only productive if it's a catalyst to start doing what needs to be done. So don't get caught up in the guilt about what we didn't do. Today, this is the moment. And let the possibility of creating this new system overcome any fears that you have. So folks, let's just hold hands and jump in together. So that's what I would offer.
Right. Kavita or Donald?
Regina really covered everything beautifully. I think the only thing I would add is just, we're all part of the system. And it is, you guys are really fighting one of the hardest fights there is, it's trying to solve homelessness. I guess, in those times where it really becomes overwhelming, as I feel like I've heard across a couple of sessions this week, is just try to focus on what you can do and not what's in your way, even though it's challenging to do. Really just trying to think about your own sphere of influence in your own work. Sometimes really just take a look at, everybody's got some power in the system. Who do you interact with? What are you in charge of? Where can you make a change? So in those times where the system just feels overwhelming, I just encourage you to think back. You all have some responsibility, and you're carrying some piece of this larger system, and you can make an impact in your sphere of influence.
So those were really, really good points, and not much to add to it, but I do have a couple of just really practical things. Set goals and make sure there are goals that are within your sphere of influence. The other thing that I would say is be patient. I think Nate said it in the beginning. It's not an event, it's a process. So there is it's really important that you are patient and diligent in the work that you're doing. A lot of communities want to jump to action before the plan is completed. So I would say that it's so important to take your time when you do this work, but not too much time, because it's important to be very comprehensive. If it's at all possible, and this is not, a plug for me or Regina or anybody else, if there are professionals in your community or professionals that you know about, I think it's important to get some outside eyes on your data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, and get help with kind of those next steps, because you want to really plan some outcomes that are achievable. And the last thing I would say is be inclusive. Because getting this work done requires a lot more than just the groups that are inside the continuum of care. So you want to reach out to some of those groups that are connected to the work, but maybe not inside the work. So if you can expand it out to groups in the community that are friends, but are not necessarily in the day-to-day weeds of homeless assistance, it'll really help you to get to those goals that you want to achieve.
All right, great. Lots of pearls of wisdom there. Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about partnerships, because we know and have come to understand they're so critical to ending homelessness. And our sector has gone through a pretty remarkable shift over the last 5 to 7 years around moving from very siloed programs to coordinated entry systems that require these partnerships, that are dependent, that are foundationed on the ability for agencies and programs and stakeholders to work together and to collaborate. And we know that it's no less true, and maybe even more true in a racial equity space, that these partnerships are critical. So I wanted to start there just more broadly. How can we build on the partnership work that we all have been learning to do together in terms of our movement towards racial equity, and how might we start to think a little differently or more broadly about what those partnerships look like? And Kavita, do you want to start us off on this one? I know you've worked in different sectors now, and I'm sure partnerships are also very present in education as well.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I think every sector is thinking about racial equity now. If you weren't thinking about it before June, you certainly started thinking about it, given the confluence of horrible events that brought us to start reckoning again with racial equity in this country. I mean, if you're already in partnership, I know I hear a lot of folks, it's like, this is like another thing I've got to do, right? An added layer. Resources are always lean. It just seems like a natural way to continue your partnerships with other groups, right? There, especially if you're at the beginning, there are likely partners among your partnerships who have already started embarking on the racial equity work. So maybe there are ways you can partner on trainings or focus groups, monthly lunch and learns, you know, that kind of thing, where you're already meeting to do whatever other work you're doing and add a discussion around an article. That's a simple yet powerful way of keeping the dialogue fresh, and then also doing it with your partners because you're trying to put the lens on your whole system. So that's what I would recommend most when it comes to partnerships.
Yeah, great. Donald or Kavita? I mean, Regina, sorry.
I can, and I think it's my turn, so I'll jump in. I wanted to go back to a question just really briefly about what people just embarking on this system should do. And I just want to add one more thing that I think is critically important. A lot of communities go right to the VSPDAD or prioritization. But that's just a small piece of the picture. It's really important to look at every entry point in the system. Who's doing outreach? Who's actually doing whatever assessment tool you're using? Who in the community is doing case management? Who's doing the housing placement? So it's a system-wide look and not just looking at coordinated entry, because that's just a small piece of the puzzle. In terms of building a unified sector, it's really important to look at those other services that people in your community are using and bringing those people into the equation when it comes to moving towards racial equity. So we know in most communities, the de facto day shelter is the library system, for instance. You have food pantries and so many other places that are not necessarily part of your continuum of care, but they have a real stake in making sure that racial equity is achieved. You also have the traditional faith-based organizations that may house people and shelter people. Typically, those programs are not part of your HMIS system, but they are critically important to being able to achieve racial equity in the community. They need to be a part of the dialogue as well. Other systems like, and I know this is a tough one and we may have some discussion about this later, if there's a way to get the court system when it comes to evictions involved, or people from law enforcement, which may not be as easy to do right now. It's really important that all those sectors that touch the homeless system are a part of the discussion, or we don't ever get to where we want to get to in terms of this issue. We also talked about in an earlier discussion about some of the for-profit sector being involved, like landlords. So it's important to have issues and discussions about centering racial equity with people in the private sector as well. So you want to make this umbrella as large as possible. And part of the assessment process is talking to some of those other community-based assets and getting their thoughts about how to achieve racial equity. And just like talking to homeless people in focus groups, you get a treasure trove of information from those groups as well.
And Regina, I just want to give you a chance here, but also bring in the second question that I know we all feel a lot of tension around, which is partnership from the perspective of partnering and collaborating and working with law enforcement and navigating that tension and resisting, what's not okay, what's unjust, but maybe being open to, scenarios in which that can work. And that feels very fuzzy, I think, to me in some ways. And so feel free to, talk more broadly and move to that or wherever you want to start, but I just wanted to bring that into the discussion as well.
No, certainly. I think just a couple of things about sort of building out partnerships, just like that we really had to within our, homeless response systems, crisis response systems, had to get to that notion to understand that we alone will not end homelessness. And so I think it is the same thing that it is incumbent upon everyone, every system, to get to a place of racial equity, to begin to understand and to dismantle those kinds of racist practices and even the structures themselves. And so I think that part of that is making sure that we're working with folks in the community that have even gone a little bit further. So those non-traditional partners like grassroots organizations, those local organizations that are already doing this work, that they may not say, gosh, well, we're part of the quote, quote, homelessness system, but they're working for housing justice. They're working on those kinds of cases. They're doing the work in their community. And here's the thing. Maybe we should sort of get out of the habit of inviting them to our table and actually go to their table. Ask if we can sit at their table and learn and just sort of sit there quietly. And our presence alone lets them know that we're serious, that we want to act and be a part of what they're already doing in community. And then perhaps we can build a partnership table together that's a little bit larger and a little bit more inclusive. I think when we began to think about all of those systems, we cannot leave law enforcement out, nor the judicial system. We have to get into those systems, the criminal justice system. And to Nate's point, it is complicated and nuanced and now at times incredibly painful as well. So I think the first thing is to acknowledge that tension out front. Like, let's acknowledge it when we bring people to the table. And here's the thing, appreciate the officers that have always worked alongside of you, with outreach and have been those ones that have made those calls or taken folks to the hospital rather than taking them to jail. Appreciate that. But then also have those discussions about the ways that institutional and systemic racist practices continue in those departments, in that law enforcement department, in that judicial system, and go with some data, go with some stats. And sometimes that greases the wheel just a little bit, because what we don't want this to get into, shouting matches and pointing fingers and all. It's saying, we appreciate those of you all who have done the work with us, for many years. But what we do understand is that literally within your institution, that there have been certain practices that have gone on for many years. And we want to be a part of truly exploring those and seeing how we can get to a more equitable place with you and then have some data in front of you. But yeah, we have to acknowledge that is there. And especially as we talked a little bit earlier about this confluence, this big notion of these pandemics crashing into each other and all that we had to watch, over this summer, things that had been going on forever and a day, but that we watched together as a society and in your local communities, these publicized, killings and murders together. And so we're holding some things in our heads about law enforcement. And so now is the time to have those kind of open conversations. And this is where true listening comes into place. So before we're judging the people that are in front of us, let's take a listen. And let me give you a clear example. I was teaching a class with some folks in Tucson, Arizona. I didn't even realize that there was a young officer in all 4 of those classes. And finally, in class 4, he identified himself, and he said that every week between our classes, he had gone back to his team and said, can we begin to be more thoughtful about reading our 911 calls when they come in He said, because I don't want to be used as a weapon any longer. I don't want to be used as somebody else's weapon to hurt or kill or harm someone else. So he had figured out that one thing that he could do. And so that's what I encourage us to really listen before we began to make just a broad and blanket judgment.
Wow, thanks, Regina. What an eloquent response. Yeah. Well, I know we could talk for a day about partnerships and what that looks like for law enforcement. I'm going to move on to our last question. And then if you're in the audience and you have a question you would like to ask our team here before we sign off, please put those in the chat. We'll have time for maybe one or two more after this one. So please go ahead and do that if there's something you'd like to ask or dig into that you heard raised. So this is our final question. And, you know, Regina, I remember when we were in early conversations about this learning session, you raised this really strongly, that we need to have a vision of an equitable system over time, and that the future should not be one in which there is a project over here called racial equity and a project over here called ending homelessness. These need to be the same project, overlapping and integrated in the way that we think about this. So yeah, my question for all of you is, how do we start to think about co-creating, co-designing that vision of an equitable system? And how do we keep that big picture in mind while we're here at the beginning stages, or we're in the weeds, or we're slogging through the tough change process that happens? And I'll leave it open to whoever would like to go first.
Happy to jump in. You know, I firmly believe the quote that says, without a vision, the people perish. If we don't know where we're going to, how do we know when we get there? How do we understand, you know, what it is that we need to do along the way? And so together with this new coalition that we're building with our partnerships, with our Black and Brown-led leaderships, with people with lived experience at this big, beautiful table, vision out. Where do we want to be in a year, in 2 years? And then make it concrete, like literally begin to write this down and to say, what would our outcomes look like? Our exits, you know, our returns, our length of time through the system. What does our leadership look like in the end of 2021, the end of 2022, across every organization and across every system? What is our decision-making process? Who has the authority to make decisions in this new system that we're building? How is power distributed? How are we taking part of this notion of power? Because the power really, when we sort of strip it, it is the ability to actually make decisions about other people's lives. So who gets to make those decisions? Who has the power? Who has the power over the purse? Who has the power over the budget? Who has the power over those resources? Who's going to have that in 2 years, in 3 years? Where are people living? Are they living in the kinds of communities in which they fled from? Or do we want to fight and be a part of advocacy that are making sure that it's not about saying, well, you can port your voucher over here or there, but the community in which you want to live, that we're going to be advocates in making that the kind of community in which you can thrive, that we want you to have this safe and affordable and sustainable housing just where you want to be. Is that the vision that we want to have in 2 or 3 years? Which means that we've got to expand past our current boundaries of how we defined our response system. And have they been connected in this 2 years or this 1 year? Have folks been connected to and feel comfortable with the services that they want? Which means that it can't be sort of this cookie cutter or so-called neutral services that we have a list of, but have we worked with people across our entire city, our entire county, perhaps even our state, to put together a list of services that are culturally responsive, that when people walk in the door, that they actually can see themselves, that they do not have to explain themselves, that they have this sense of, they get me. There's this almost immediate trust. And so that people will be actually able to accept whatever supports that they choose to have. And I think finally for this system, this big, beautiful system that we're designing together, we want to ask every single day, or perhaps at least every week, who is going to be holding us accountable. Who are we accountable to? Because see, right now, so many of us are accountable only to those that fund us. Let's be honest. We're accountable to them. When are we going to move to the place in this new vision where we are accountable to each other, where we're accountable to our partners, where we're accountable mostly to the people that we say that we are here to serve? I think that's part of creating this more equitable system.
And I think those of us that do this work, we at the forefront of our thinking that by incorporating racially equitable systems, by changing the power dynamic, by being inclusive, the ultimate goal is to reduce homelessness in the communities. We know that the ultimate, and the two are not mutually exclusive. If you end homelessness, then racial equity is achieved. So those two goals are in lockstep in every community. So we believe that this work is central to ever ending homelessness as a whole in any community. But we know that in order to achieve it, there is the saying that says a rising tide raises all boats. And that's what we believe is happening as racial equity is becoming more of a practice and not some sort of secondary goal in our communities. We believe that moving forward, and I should say I believe that as we continue to do this work, then we will be able to have communities that are responsive to those they serve. As a homeless historian, since the early 80s, when we took the first stab at making America great again, we started to villainize poor people. And part of that villainization was to make people that are people of color the target, saying that they are somehow taking from the system. By incorporating people, by putting people in power, by being inclusive, we are then able to change that dynamic. These are people who need and can benefit from our support, and it needs to be equally distributed across the line. So once we start to achieve that in our homeless system and some of the systems that are attached, we can really make a dent in homelessness, and hopefully at the end, end homelessness forever. Because truly, ending homelessness is the way to achieve racial equity. If we don't have people that are homeless in our community, we do not have to worry about people not being treated equitably. Excuse me. So that's what I would add, but pretty hard to follow that very powerful statement that Richard made. I'll just acknowledge.
And Kavita, anything you want to add here?
Just that, you know, with this is one big system, and there's like all of these other sectors. There's so much powerful learning and data analysis coming out of both education, criminal justice. I mean, the data is so stark, but the qualitative stuff behind in public health with maternal health, and they've been trying to crack that nut for decades now. Why is there such a disparity in Black maternal health and infant mortality rates? And there, you know, the research and folks that are kind of re-looking at the data now are saying, you know, we're just not looking, not asking the right questions. And ultimately, they are pointing to, you know, physiological stress on Black women really having an impact in their increased rates of preeclampsia and losing. I mean, it's just, it's so direct and obvious now that they've been able to take a different lens, a racial equity lens to their work, to see the same data in different eyes, you know, with different eyes. So I just encourage you, there's some really good, I'll certainly share with the community solutions staff a couple of the public health articles that are really, I think there's a lot to learn from that field in particular, and in how they're looking at their data differently. So just always keeping in mind that these systems and sectors are so connected, and we have a lot to learn from each other in work that's already gone forward.
Well, we're gonna wrap up this section here. I think we've run out of our time for this section. I know we did have a question from Ian come in about practical tips on how we approach some of these partnership conversations, but maybe we'll come back to that at another time. It seems like a good question. And just want to end by thanking you all for the way you've showed up for us this week and been present with us and everything that you've shared. And since we can't have everyone give you a round of applause, I wonder if you all can either use your cards to show appreciation or in the chat. If you could this is an opportunity to express gratitude and thanks for Kavita, Regina, and Donald. And just give everyone a second.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Look at those cameras. People may be holding things up. Let you receive that. All right. Thank you all again.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing in the community, and thank you for allowing us to be here this week.
Exactly, ditto. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so we want to start wrapping up here, and just want to kind of briefly recap what we covered this week and how some of these pieces fit together. You know, like we mentioned at the beginning of the panel, that we're on this transformational journey, that this is not a transactional journey, but a transformational journey and a process. That, to Donald's point, we don't want to see this as an event, but a process, and that process has to happen at all these levels, individually and organizationally, and locally controlled systems. We know that within a local context, there's multiple systems, right, that need to be interfacing together. And then state and national organizations and systems as well, which we consider Built for Zero, a sort of national system of sorts in terms of the collaborative and how you all are networked together. And that this journey requires laying the foundation, as we talked about in our first session after opening plenary this week, that laying the foundation is a necessary first step, but is not a checkbox, that process needs to be ongoing, and that there are some preliminary things that probably need to happen in terms of having conversations locally, understanding our national history, but also your local history, co-designing shared norms and definitions, and that there's sort of foundational steps. Sorry, Ross, just go back one more. In the different elements of this indicators framework that Arash shared, that all of those have sort of foundational steps that we went through together that are necessary to start moving closer and closer to taking action and thinking about how do we change our system to be more equitable over time, and that we have these 4 kind of categories of indicators that Arash presented around lived experience, quality data, system outcomes, and system decision-making power, and did our best to create sessions that would give you all tools and equip you to start moving forward in each of those spaces, including, of course, moving forward on laying the foundation. And so in the next slide, I just wanted to pull out and remind everyone, you know, we really hope that everyone leaves at minimum. Obviously, some of you are further down the road, so there may be things beyond this, but at minimum that you feel ready to get started on laying the foundation or taking the next step on laying the foundation, and including things like understanding local historical context, co-designing, redesigning local inclusive norms, co-designing local shared language and concepts that you all are going to use, so that you have a vernacular that you can use together to talk about what's happening. That you just have a conversation. If you haven't had a conversation about this, just think about what's the next conversation you could have. Maybe that's a one-to-one conversation. Maybe it's bringing it up at a meeting. And just to remember that this is, you know, a continuous learning journey, and that needs to happen both for us individually and as groups and teams as we move forward. And then Ross, the other big thing we want you to take away is sort of next steps on this indicators of a racially equitable homeless response system. Ross, you want to hum a few bars for us here as a reminder? Yeah.
Happy to. So again, I think we hope to bring together these different elements of things that you might set aims around and measure and start to pay attention to these indicators, these areas of potential improvement in your local homeless response system. So we've laid out those 4 here. I won't read the first steps, but suffice it to say that we'll be sharing out this content with you all and hope that this gives you a place to start. We know that this is an incomplete sort of set of information about the types of changes or approaches you might want to take, and we're going to learn into some more concrete actions together. But we feel fairly confident that if nothing else, if you were to start with these 4 things, it would give you some sort of levers or handholds for being able to start to drive some progress and improvement and fruitful conversation in your community.
Right. And then we don't want to forget quality improvement. We didn't talk about quality improvement explicitly in a lot of these conversations, but want to just name that this remains a valuable problem-solving tool and sets of questions that we want to hang on to as we're thinking about what's next and the changes we want to make. And whatever stage of the process you're in, I think these questions are still relevant. What are we trying to accomplish? Is this something that we can test before we make a big change? How do we stay curious? What data would help us answer the question we're trying to uncover? How would we know a change is an improvement? What do we need to measure to understand if the thing that we think we need to change is actually going to get the result that we're looking for? And so just a reminder there that we want to hang on to our QI muscles, our quality improvement. So many of you have worked so hard to build these muscles, and so they're there and available to you. And we don't want to forget that. We don't want to lose that as you move forward. So in terms of what's coming up next, we just wanted to give you a high-level look at what's coming up sort of on our end and in our view. And I also want to be upfront that we are on this learning journey with you. And so much of what we arrived at today are things that we've been developing the very recent past, and we're still developing things. We're still developing tools and frameworks. So we don't want to pretend like we're not in that space. We are in that space, but we're so happy to be in it with you and running alongside you, and really want to be understanding and paying attention to what you're learning, the challenges that you're facing, the bright spots, the things, the successes that you're having, and using that information to think about and design how we can continue to support you and hold this space together as we move towards racial equity. So we have an April learning session sort of on the calendar. We don't have specific dates yet. That learning session next year in April will be a virtual learning session. We don't think our public health officials have indicated that it will probably be safe to come back together in person. But we thought that this worked pretty well. Of course, we'll let you give us feedback as a virtual space and are excited to do this again and do it even better. Between now and then, I should say between now and the end of the year, in terms of the indicators framework, we're going to be sort of learning with and from you as you take next steps to implement. And as we move into next year, think about how we can continue to iterate and respond to what you're learning and what we're learning about those indicators, how to continue to fine tune those and refine them, and really have those develop in a way that is centered on the actual lived work that you're doing and what's happening. In terms of data tools and dashboards, those will be sort of under construction over the next couple of months, and we hope, or we're aiming to have those ready by the beginning of next year. That would include our reporting tools, things like our by name with scorecards, all those kinds of data-related tools we hope we have up and running, or we're aiming to have up and running. So you will start to hear about those probably towards the end of this year. In terms of coaching and training, in the immediate term following this learning session, we want to be thought partners with you. We want to be problem-solving partners with you. Let us know what you need. We'll do our best to show up and be with you in those questions. And again, rely on the things we've already learned, our problem-solving skills to apply to what's next. And then in the beginning of the year next year, we're planning to have some virtual cohorts and supports with some similar expert faculty helping to shape and guide and continue to teach and support the work you're doing, that those are also spaces where you're continuing to learn and support each other. In addition, we'll also be thinking about and working towards integrating racial equity across every version of our support. Everything that you receive from us in terms of support will have racial equity as a part of that framework, as our approach to the way that we think about ending homelessness. And we know that's a journey for us as well. And so we're going to continue to move in that direction, but we want to be upfront about the fact that coaching will start to involve this, that all of the different ways that we support will start to involve and include racial equity. And then lastly, in terms of peer learning and knowledge sharing, over the next couple of months, we really want to create some feedback loops to understand your challenges and bright spots. So we really hope and ask that you will give us that feedback. We'll try to make that easy for you to provide, not to be a burden. But through our coaching calls, through surveys, things like that, we want to continue to have a feedback loop and use that information. And as we move into next year, to think about how can we as a network of the Built for Zero movement co-create a change package, a set of tactics and practices that are proven through the work that you're doing, that we can easily bundle and share out with all of you, so that we really accelerate the speed of learning across our network and move forward together. So that's what's next and what to expect from Built for Zero. And yes, we have a couple of announcements about other things coming up. Eddie, are you on the line? Would you like to give us a quick overview of the Case Conferencing Summit coming up in November?
I surely would. Hi, everyone. It's Eddie. This has been a great session. What incredible speakers all 3 days. Oh my goodness. But there's more. In about a month from now, November 16th and 17th, we will have a virtual 2-day event full of workshops. It will be different in a couple of ways. One, no one is required and everyone is invited at the Case Conferencing Summit. So if you don't have the time or headspace for it, don't worry. We won't take attendance, but make sure that anyone who's a facilitator in your community who's doing case conferencing, we have sessions, especially for facilitators. We've got sessions for frontline staff, for folks doing data management, pulling the list. We'll have one workshop that's just about getting your by name list optimized for being the engine for case conferencing. We're designing these sessions so that you can make changes on the fly and leave that hour-long session ready to make a change at your next meeting. So it's really action-oriented. It's really practical, and we're going to release a big resource package about the same time. So watch your email, talk to your coach. If you haven't registered already, the link is in the chat. So we look forward to seeing many of you in about a month.
Cool, thanks, Eddie. Yes, please go to that. Okay, Shayla, are you on the line? Are you unmuted and available?
I'm here.
Tell us about Slack.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited that the Built for Zero team wants to offer an opportunity for additional engagement through a platform called Slack. It's for communication and collaboration. And we think there's a lot of good reasons why this will be beneficial to our communities. First of all, it's like really fast, easy communication between BSC communities and the Built for Zero staff. We can get feedback really quickly, we can co-design things, and we can get quick responses on faster questions. It actually allows you could reach out directly to a person, you can tag someone, you can talk community to community, and you can also talk on specific issues or have like special channels just to talk about specific issues if you want to talk about data, if you want to talk about veterans, if you want to talk about different things. It'll facilitate faster knowledge sharing between communities, and we really think that it'll cut down on emails because we can just reach out with quick questions to one another, and communities can respond to things that might be put up. It doesn't always have to be Built for Zero staff. It will allow people to respond to each other and answer questions. But because it's kind of a controlled environment in smaller groups, it's a little bit different from the Facebook Hub. We should be able to communicate directly with each other and answer questions. So we're excited. Please, we're going to start with community leads first. They're going to receive some communication from VSC staff, so be on the lookout for that with instructions on how to sign up. And we're going to start small, and then we're going to expand so that we'll try to pilot it, work out the kinks, and then others can join in on the fun.
All right, thanks, Chayla. And I just wanted to note that those of you that participate in the large city cohort are ahead of this curve. You've already gotten these invitations. You're already starting to move and start to use that space. So we'll be watching how that's working from you, learning from you, and excited to have others of you join in that space and what that would level up or provide, especially as we're in this more virtual world in terms of how we connect and stay connected and learn from each other. Okay. So let's see. You know, I got a note from Tamara that there's major jackhammering construction right outside her window. She was going to cover this slide. But I just wanted to stop and thank Anna and Tamara, our MCs, for doing such a great job in hosting us over the last 3 days. If you can give them a little love in your screen or in the chat, I'm sure that they would appreciate that. I'll give you a second to do that. And next, I want to thank, many of you may not know that we have a team on our team called Team Excellence. Isn't that a great name for a team? Team Excellence. And Team Excellence makes us excellent at our operations. And so Reagan, Ashley, and especially Star really drove for Team Excellence so much of what happened here behind the scenes, the logistics, our partners at Team Try who help us with events. I just want to give Team Excellence a lot of love and thanks for all of the hard work that they put into making this run smoothly, making sure our Zoom lines were set up. That Sketch platform was all Star driving that. She believed that this would be a better way to do this, and she was right. This was such a better way to do it and have a platform like that that was a one-stop shop. So I want to give them lots of thanks and love for all of that. Okay, so in terms of accessing virtual learning session content, you can continue to use the Sketch app. That is where the stuff is going to be hosted. If we, at some point, we will migrate that into a website, probably. We'll let you know when that's going to happen. But at least for the next month or so, you can come back to Sketch and download your session materials. That PDF of the racially equitable system indicators is in there. We'll also, we don't have it up yet, but we will have the recorded content from each session hosted inside of Sketch as YouTube videos. That's going to take us a couple days, but we'll let you know when that's ready so that you could either rewatch, go, you know, can I rewind and like, there was something they said I want to remember. You'll be able to go back and do that. Find those nuggets that you want to write down. Obviously, if you had other people from your team that couldn't make it, we want this to be available to them as well, especially if you had partners or people on your improvement teams that you're like, wow, I wish they were here right now. You'll have an opportunity, I think, to connect them into Sketch and let them access that content so they can check it out virtually. We'll have a follow-up email that will include, of course, the links back to Sketch that holds the session content. We would love for you to take a survey at the end of this session on the whole learning session. We'll also relink that survey in case some people from your team couldn't be here for final closing plenary. Obviously, we want to improve at every level in terms of how we facilitate this virtually, but also the content that we're sharing. Tell us how we can do better next time. Tell us how this was impactful for you. We'll also make sure to include in that follow-up email a PDF of the indicators of a racially equitable homelessness response system. And before I turn to the final slide with our survey link, is there anyone else on the Built for Zero Community Solutions team that has something we need to announce or say? I just want to not blow past anybody else that had something, or in case I missed something along the way. All right, Anna and Tamara, do you want to say a quick goodbye to everybody? I don't want to, it feels awkward now to not have you here as our voices sending us home.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for your attention and your thoughtfulness over the last 3 days. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you all. I have been inspired by you and all of your thoughtfulness. To the teams that I coach, I can't wait to talk more and dig deeper into this work. But overall, just thank you so much, everyone, for the work you do every day to help these most vulnerable people in our communities. We love you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. My construction has stopped for a moment, but thank you so much. I was just writing in the chat that, you know, this work can be really hard and overwhelming sometimes, but It gives me such solace to know that we have this huge Built for Zero army that's right next to us, trudging through in the trenches, trying to get the good work done. So just thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your thoughtfulness and time.
Great. And I just want to add a thanks to the Built for Zero team. We had a core team that really hatched this agenda and designed these sessions. And in the moment, I'm afraid I'm going to forget someone's name, so I'm not going to try to touch on everyone's name, but there was a core group that really dedicated themselves to pulling together these sessions and thinking about what would be most useful and helpful and engaging for all of you, and put so much of themselves into that work. And so just want to give that whole team a big, big thanks. Everyone that you saw in those breakout sessions that were leading and presenting were a part of that and more. Okay. That's it. Please, we'll leave this QR code up. Please take this survey. Let us know how we can get better. We'll leave this up for a while. And until next time, stay well. I'll talk to you all soon.
Hello, everyone. This is Bernice B. Ramallah, and I also wanted to quickly inform everyone that I'm so grateful for this session, and to let everyone know that the People with Lived Experience Institute will be hosting a conference in December 17th, 18th, and 19th. So you can go to pleinstitute.org under the PLE conference link to register for more information.
Nate, you're muted. I think you're double muted. You're still muted. There you go.
Yeah, I told Beth before this it was Beth's job to remind me if I was double muted or not. She did her job right there. I was just trying to thank our partners at the PLE Institute for presenting and helping us, and we're so connected. I mean, we're so excited to have been connected with you through this process and to stay connected and continue working together in the future. Thanks very much.
And Bernice, folks are asking for you to put those dates in the chat. So if you're still on and you want to just drop that information in the chat as well, or a link, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Let me drop the link right now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Nate. Hey, Beth. Hey, all the Built for Zero team. Hi. How's everything going?
Good.
It's Cliff from Tucson. Everybody good?
Yeah, it was great. I heard you on a session yesterday. It was so great to see your face and hear your voice. Missed you guys.
Miss you guys too. Thank you for the conference. It was good.
Yeah, thank you. It was wonderful to have everyone here together.
Cool. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks, Cliff.
And then, Nate, there was a question in the chat whether all this information would be emailed out. And my assumption is yes, but I don't know if you just want to speak to that real quick.
Yeah, I don't know if the information is related to like these slides in this session, but all the session materials will be in Sketch, and we'll send an email when they're all ready, including the videos. So you don't have to keep coming back to find what you're looking for. We'll also include some of the other information we listed today about upcoming events and that kind of thing in the follow-up email. If there's anything specific that I didn't mention, please call it out.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Get some rest.
Bye. Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye, everybody.